Hi, I'm Professor Popeye. Welcome to Popeye's House of Pain University. I am your Dean of Mean, so sit down, shut the fuck up, and pay attention. Class is about to begin. Today, we're going to talk about something that typically interests most people. Of course, most people have no idea about how much or how little it really means at some points. And what I mean by that is money. Of course, most people say, well, of course it means a lot, Popeye. Well, yeah, it does, of course. Money means quite a bit, kind of. But then again, the stuff is completely fake. Well, what do you mean by that, Popeye? It pays my bills and stuff. Well, yeah, it pays the bills. Fucking does. Yeah, because people will still accept it. But we have to start thinking about some of this stuff a little bit more of a realistic standpoint. Now, just on the surface, we have 1, 5, 10, 20. Doesn't cost any more to print the 20 than it does to print the 1 or the 5 or the 10. They weigh the same. It's the same amount of paper. It's the same amount of ink. So you have to, of course, then ask yourself, well, then how does the 1 become so much less value than the 5 or the 10 or than the 20? Well, that's a pretty good question, and I really couldn't tell you how they say that this actually has any value to begin with. It used to be that money was gold and silver certificates. And of course, what that meant was that you could actually take the green stuff, trot your little ass on down to the bank, and you could get some gold, some silver, real tangible money. The only thing actually worth value, intrinsic value, used for a monetary system. Well, at the time that things started changing, came about 1910 was when the real changes started to happen. We didn't see the change happen right then. What happened is it took a couple more years, and the real turning point was the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. And if you want to know more about this, look up G. Edward Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a great read, very, very uh, intuitive. It will really give you quite a bit of insight as to what it is that you're dealing with. Well, with that being said, then a couple of years later, there was a couple of other things that happened. And I say a couple of years, just about 20 years to be exact. June 5th, 1933, the 73rd Congress, in their first session, signed joint a House joint resolution. And that House joint resolution was 192. 192 essentially it suspended and abrogated the gold standard. Essentially, it removed gold as the form of pay, gold and silver as well. And in fact, at that time, all United States citizens were ordered to return all of their gold and silver coins to the government, to the banks, so that there was no more gold and silver out there. And what they did then is they turned around and they issued what is known as a fiat currency. And by fiat currency, it means It's a currency of faith. And well, what that means is this is a debt, but yet there's nothing that you can collect with it. If you were to go down to the store with this in your pocket and you took some stuff off the shelf and you go up to the cashier, you're about to acquire a debt because they want the money for those products. You're paying a debt with a debt? Man, is that crazy? I don't know how that could be. I don't know how on earth we could possibly pay a debt with a debt. And particularly since there's no gold backing this. There's no gold backing this at all. Now, one of the problems that we have these days is you would typically be able to look a lot of this stuff up online. And of course, Freedom of Information Acts and laws are supposed to be able to release all information so that we can find whatever it is that we want. And, well, I can't find HGR 192 online anywhere, and the government memories, Library of Congress, looked all over. But what we can do, though, any of us, is we can actually find titles and codes and so on. Well, if you went and Googled 31 USC section 5118, you're going to find HGR 192 codified or codified. And essentially what it means is that it's making it to where nobody can ask for any specific form of pay because there is no money. What that means is when they specifically ask you for this, technically speaking, it's illegal according to Title 31, Section 5118. It says that they cannot ask for a particular form of payment. So when it comes down to that, one of the case laws that has been hidden from us that we cannot get our hands on any longer is a case called Montgomery Ward v. Glazer. And just a quick synopsis of what this case was. There was a guy by the name of Glazer. His wife and him were having some problems. His wife took the credit card, went down to Montgomery Ward's, and pretty much charged everything from the front door to the back. Well, ultimately, he lost the case. Judge said that he needed to pay up, told him that he needed to pay X amount of dollars. Well, Mr. Glazer was a little bit sharper than most people, and he knew about HR 192 and Title 31, Section 5118. So he stood on this judge a bit. And they went back and forth a little bit, and at one point the judge got a little bit pissed off, and he said, I don't care if you pay him coffee beans for dollars, but you owe him the money. Well, because this is in a court case, there's a court reporter right there taking all these notes. And this case, they actually happened to have two court reporters. There was a privately paid for court reporter in the room at the same time. And, well, at that point, it was a done deal. We had a judge, a sitting judge, make a ruling that because there is no real dollars, there is no real ability to pay, that Mr. Glazer could take care of his tab with coffee beans, and he did. He paid the entire tab with coffee beans. And that case has been hidden because of that. There's another one, though, goes a little bit further than that. And, well, there's a couple of things. One, Title 12, Section 411. In Title 12, Section 411, it says that Federal Reserve notes shall be issued at the discretion of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for the purposes of making advances to Federal Reserve banks to the Federal Reserve agents as hereinafter set forth, and for no other purpose are authorized. The said notes shall be obligations of the United States and shall be receivable by all national and member banks and Federal Reserve banks for all taxes, customs, and other public dues. They shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand at the Treasury Department of the United States in the City of Washington, District of Columbia, or at any Federal Reserve Bank. Now, hear that again. They shall be redeemed in lawful money. I don't know exactly what that means, but this means it's not the lawful stuff. They're calling it legal tender, but yet it's not lawful. Well, if we look at what exactly lawful money is, we have to go to Title 31, Section 5115. And what 5115 talks about is United States currency, of which there's $300 million, so to speak, out there. And this is actual lawful money. Now, if you really want to have some fun, go to your local county registrar's office, the county recorder's office, and get your certified copy of Title 12, Section 411, and Title 31, Section 5115. And then take it down to your bank and tell them you want all of your cash and lawful money, just to see what happens. They're going to have a bit of fun with that, and they're going to have to come up with the United States currency notes, and you can have your Federal Reserve notes replaced with lawful money. But then we slide on back a little bit further, and one of the big things that so many people worry about, particularly when it comes to their money, is taxes. When the government shows up with the gun, sticks it in your face, and says, hand it over. Well, it used to be that there was a case that changed some things. There was a case in Memphis Bank and Trust Company v. Garner. And what this case did was it made the government hide a code. The code was Title 31, Section 742. And what this code stated was, and I will quote, the section provided for that except as otherwise provided by law, all stocks, bonds, treasury notes, and other obligations of the United States shall be exempt, I repeat, shall be exempt from taxation by or under state or municipal or local authority, applied to income in form of interest earned by bank or various federal obligations, primary notes and bills of the United States Treasury and obligations, federal credit banks. 31 U.S.C. Section 742. Now, what happened is In this case, it was basically cited that they can't tax your money. What happened then is the government went out to all the different law libraries and they pulled section 742 from all of the books. And they created two other titles. Title 31, section 3124, exemption from taxation. Stocks and obligations of the United States government are exempt from taxation by state or political subdivisions of a state. The exemption applies to each form of taxation that would require the obligation, the interest on the obligation, or both to be considered in computing a tax. Now, they removed the wording of federal notes and so on and so forth because they didn't want you to put two and two together. They didn't want you to realize that, oh, wait a minute, that kind of goes with this, and it says right here, they can't tax me. Well, what they did as well, along with Title 31, Section 3124, is they also created Title 18, Section 8. And Title 18, Section 8, that title in itself actually describes, oh, get this, obligations and other securities of the United States. Now, specifically, what it says is the term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates of deposit, bills, checks, or drafts for money drawn by or upon authorized officers of the United States, stamps, and we'll touch on that in a minute, stamps, and other representatives of value of whatever denomination issued under any act of Congress and canceled United States stamps, postage stamps. Yes, I said postage stamps. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is this. United States postage stamps is actually money. Yeah. I'm not going to get into the total postal technology, but because of the fact that our postage stamps were based on money, it was based on even the gold standard. What we now have is through the United Postal Union, because the French franc is still based on the gold standard. If you use a postage stamp, essentially you're creating a form of monetary value if you apply it to a document, say a presentment, a bill from the credit card company, your IRS tax return. And, well, quite frankly, and this is the big one, the IRS tax return, they're not going to let you do it. They've come to realize that people are doing this, and this is the politicians' back door, their exit strategy from having to spend any of their own money. When we hear about politicians that supposedly haven't paid their taxes because they don't show any check that ever went to the IRS, well, this is how they're doing it. Because in Title 26 IRS, Internal Revenue Code, Section 6201, it states, authority of secretary. The secretary is authorized and required to make the inquiries, determinations, and assessments of all taxes, including interest, additional amounts additions to the tax and assessable penalties imposed by this title, and occurring under any former Internal Revenue law which has not been duly paid by stamp at the time and in the manner provided by law. Such authority shall extend to and include the following: taxes shown on returns. The Secretary shall assess all taxes determined by the taxpayer or by the Secretary as to which returns or listed are made under this title. 2. Unpaid taxes payable by stamp. A. Omitted stamps. Whenever an article upon which the tax is required to be paid by the means of a stamp is sold or removed from sale or use by a manufacturer, therefore, or whenever any transaction or act upon which a tax is required to be paid by means of a stamp occurs. Without the use of the proper stamp, it shall be the duty of the Secretary, upon such information as he can obtain, to estimate the amount of the tax which has been omitted to be paid, and to make assessments therefore upon the person or persons the Secretary deems to be liable for such tax. Stamps is money. Stamps is money, but this isn't. Wow. An awful lot to think about. But this is fake. This doesn't mean anything. I mean, yeah, we can still go out and buy stuff with it. And I know we're doing commerce with it every day all over the place. But at what cost? When we see that the Federal Reserve prints up fresh money every day because the government has gone broke one more day, and they get another fresh loan from the Treasury / internal or International Monetary Fund. They never print the interest either. Something to think about. When that interest isn't printed up, that's a problem. Where's the interest going to come from? We've got a fake currency that's not backed by gold. All these countries that are wanting their gold reserves back are at the throats of the Federal Reserve every day, wanting their gold. Look at what happened when Germany started checking on their gold back in 2006 and started this ball on the other countries wanting their gold back. There was some issues there. Look at it. I'm going to put some links below so you guys can look at some stuff. Check it out. Class dismissed.